in Boston, and I didn't live there for long, but man, come on, you never hear anything like that. Hell, it was hard enough to find a church in Boston.
You were in Boston, Ben. Yeah, you were a black man.
I'm glad to be back in the South.
All right, so let's move on with the stories for the day. Let's talk about some hostility between congressional Republicans and Democrats, which reaches new lows amid growing fears of violence. So on Thursday, open hostility broke out among Republicans and Democrats in Congress, again, amid growing fears of physical violence and looming domestic terrorism threats from supporters of former President Donald Trump. Pelosi said at a Thursday morning news conference, the enemy is within the House of Representatives, a threat that members are concerned about in addition to what is happening outside. Hours after Pelosi's remarks, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy met with Trump in Florida. In a statement, the pair vowed to work together to take back the House. On Thursday afternoon, Representative Matt Gaetz, Trump acolyte, traveled to the district of Representative Liz Cheney, a member of the House GOP leadership, to hold a rally criticizing her vote to impeach Trump earlier this month. Some Democrats are expressing fears that Republican lawmakers, who in some cases have tried bringing weapons onto the House floor, cannot be trusted. Some have bought bulletproof vests, and are seeking other protections. What do we have to say about that, starting with Mondale?
There's a lot. There's a lot. I think just thinking about where we are right now, the fact that the Republicans are trying to unify their party, and they had in their House meeting, the Republican House meeting, they had called for unity, meaning that they didn't attack each other. But Matt Gaetz does the highest of attacking by going to another Congress member's district and attack that Congress member. They're not even from the same state. So this is not a person who took the time to go to his district and meet with his constituents. He went all the way to Montana to meet with Liz Cheney's constituents, and also try to rile up some hate for her because she voted for impeachment of Donald Trump. Now, keep in mind that this woman's life was threatened too, because she was in the House when those terrorists tried to take over the Capitol. She was in the House. So a couple of weeks ago, her life was threatened by these people, and he's now trying to downplay that, calling for, time for us to move past that. That is the funny part. Here's the real tragedy, though. Matt Gaetz is doing something that's transparent to anybody that understands politics. He's trying to situate himself in a place as a leader to prepare to run for president, right? And wait.
You think he's just trying to run for?
Yeah,
I'm not laughing at your opinion. I'm laughing at the thought that cat could think that he could actually run for president. You think he actually thinks that?
That really tickled you, Ben.
Yeah, these white folks got some goddamn nerve.
Yeah, this is him
mediocre Beavis and Butthead ass looking. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mondale.
Don't forget President 45 was the other one. So Beavis was already president. Now it's time for Butthead, right? This is how they see it. I'm telling you, this was a national play to make yourself a national name. Because what else would a congressman from the South be doing in the middle of this country, but to sow discourse and also to make sure his name reigns true in people's email. The problem with that is these people aren't listening to just that. Yesterday in DC, they arrested a guy close to the Capitol with a loaded weapon, and also stuff about the conspiracy that these people are spreading, and a list of lawmakers' names. So we're at the point now where the People's House in D.C., they're thinking about the fence being permanent. You will no longer will you be able just to walk up to the White House and walk. Through the People's House,
what these terrorists
because of what's going on. And I don't even want to talk about the rest of the story. That Matt Gaetz situation alone is disgusting for that reason.
Damn it, Mondale.
Marcus,
you right. You right, brother.
I think Mondale nailed it.
Dang.
Yeah.
Look, y'all good? All right, let's move on, y'all, because now we got to get in to AOC and Ted Cruz.
Oh, yeah, this was good.
So Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said Thursday that she was willing to work with Republicans to investigate the stock trading app Robinhood, but not Senator Ted Cruz, who she accused of attempted murder for his role in encouraging the January 6th terrorist attack on the U.S. Capitol. On Twitter, Cruz seconded Ocasio-Cortez tweet about investigating Robinhood's decision to halt trading on a number of stocks, including GameStop on Thursday, to which the New York Congresswoman responded, "I am happy to work with Republicans on this issue where there's common ground, but you almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago, so you can sit this one out."
Come on.
Happy to work with almost any other GOP that aren't trying to get me killed. In the meantime, if you want to help, you can resign. Come on, somebody. While you conveniently talk about moving on, a second Capitol Police officer lost their life yesterday in the still raging aftermath of the attacks you had. Of the attacks you had a role in. This isn't a joke. We need accountability, and that includes a new senator from Texas. Oh, she read his rights. In response to the Congresswoman's comments, Cruz said via the Hill poll, "You know, there's a lot of partisan anger and rage on the Democratic side. It's not healthy for our country. It's certainly not conducive of healing or unity, but everyone has to decide how they want to interact with others." And basically AOC is saying, I do not want to interact with you at all. Starting with James, what do you think about that?
Man, I can say she did that. Dropped mic, shady, everything, all of it. And she was right as hell. You can help me out by resigning. Because if it wasn't for your punk tail, then you that part shouldn't have been the hell out.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that we really understand what she's trying to say along the lines of that too. It's like, y'all are really talking this partisan and all of this, but you and your folks literally sat there on the sidelines and provoked your people in the street, your GOP gangsters, your Antufas, all of them. You literally provoked all of them this whole time, and now you want to work together. I don't want to work with any of you. And I think it's very important that AOC stands on that, because there are a lot of Democrats who are willing to walk the line, who are willing to ride the fence, who are willing to just stand by and walk hand in hand and act like nothing really happened and move on. But she made a point, and literally they almost were murdered because of some of these Republican leaders.
I just try to put myself in the shoes of someone who was in that facility, not knowing what was going on, right? And honestly, we're desensitized in this country, right? And I think we really moved past the trauma that somebody endured that day. Because think about it, like those white supremacists out their mind, they could have, they did kill people. And so, I don't think there's an exaggeration. Ted Cruz is a part and parcel of what created that insurrection. So AOC didn't say anything wrong. She said what she said. Mark,
whiteness knows that it's going to always be forgiven, and Ted Cruz is playing into that. He's politically savvy enough to know that if I ain't in jail yet, y'all will never put me in jail.
Right.
That's why he feels like he can reply to AOC like it ain't nothing, because your pain doesn't mean anything to Ted Cruz. His pain, that insurrection in Ted Cruz's mind, and also slowly seeping over into moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans, and already it's deep seated into the minds of Republicans. So let me not say moderate Democrats, because most moderate Democrats are pissed off about it too, but it is slowly seeping into moderate Republicans. And that is the thought that this was all right. We don't have to. So when you think that insurrection is okay, you could just move on to the next topic. Republicans have successfully created a narrative that anytime someone says insurrection is partisan politics. They've created that narrative, and Democrats have allowed that narrative to happen because we got a lot of bigger fish. We're trying to fix the country, and they're just trying to save. And the Republican Party is trying to save face. So by saving face, they know that Republican constituents invest in Robinhood also. They know that but what they don't know is they ran up on the wrong one. And and AOC just created another dead body on Twitter by her response. But her response, even though it was ether, it was real. right? Like,
Facts.
dude, you tried to take me, like you allowed them to take me out, and you still up here working with me. Nancy Pelosi just basically said earlier, like this week, yo, listen, our enemies are within this building, right? And they're showing people around, and they're walking people around, and they're taking selfies with people who will go back to their district and their homes and threaten the same folks that you were you're working with. So, you know, my thought process is real simple on this one right here.
Yeah.
Toxic whiteness is, you know, has allowed Ted Cruz to make a statement like that. Like, it ain't nothing. I can agree with Democrats now. Now we can work together. Now we can be bipartisan today.
Come on.
Right now. And just a couple of weeks ago, it was, come on in here and kill my colleagues.
Right. As if we gonna forget that.
Why do they think that we're gonna forget? Why do they think that we're really
because their constituents are stupid enough to forget that.
Well, like Marcus said, their whiteness is going to be forgiven. They walk in that. They know that their whiteness is going to be forgiven.
Well, I mean, if
whiter than snow.
If history is a marker, it's because politics, Americans' memory for politics is short. This is why people are reelected after doing nothing for their constituents over and over and over again. Historically, Ted Cruz has history on his side. He has history on his side to say that Americans will forget this. They will forget this trauma because it was inflicted by white people, whiteness. And America has a wonderful ability. America has a wonderful ability to revise history when we're talking about the trauma and harms that whiteness and white people commit. This is the case for, if I ask anybody right now, name the pastor of the church in South Carolina that white boy walked in and killed. And he was an elected official. None of them can remember that. If we could talk about what was going on and how many other churches, name the cities where the other 5 churches where that occurred, where white men ran in and either burned or shot up churches in that same time frame. Nobody knows.
Come on, man.
If I tell people to name somebody other than George Floyd that was murdered by cops last year, that was headlines, they're going to be hard pressed to remember that. This is the shortness of white crime and white trauma in this country is a real thing. And Ted Cruz is banking on that. So I you know what I'm saying? Like, historically it's accurate, but here's the problem for him. These are new days. These are new days, and this trauma is compounding. And people like AOC, by calling this out, revives breath into the trauma that white people cause at the Capitol. And it is not just about what they did. It's about the fact that you killed a cop with an American flag. They beat a cop to death with an American flag. Patriots did. Patriots did. And they caused one of their supporters, a veteran, to be killed too, because she was amped up and went in there and got herself shot.
How about killed?
So, but here's the problem. Nobody's talking about the trauma that's associated. Like this was breezed over. Another officer has taken their life that was associated with the riot. Another officer has taken his life. And that's trauma. That's leftover trauma from what happened, right? And now the person who killed that young lady for trying to break through the window, he also has to deal with the fact that he's taken a life.
He took somebody's life. Yeah,
he took someone's life. That's residual. That is not a small thing. It's compounding traumas. It's we in this country are living with a catalog of traumas. And Mondale, you're right. We can't remember those names because we're just overwhelmed. There's just so many names. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rebecca.
No, you're right. It is sad that we can't remember. It's like, I'm glad AOC did what she did, because what she did is going to, if not, I mean, it's stirring the pot, because Democrats are like, some Democrats are like, she's a little too radical. Some are like, dang, she is walking so I can run. She's handling business so I can speak up too. But this is absolutely necessary what she's doing, because we can no longer, especially with other situations that has happened, we can no longer sit by and say nothing, which is important, because AOC is definitely moving forward with this. I I want to read the tweet where AOC has here it is. AOC says here, where she continued, she said, while you were conveniently talking about moving on, a second Capitol police officer lost their life yesterday. But that's not the one. Here it is. She said, you haven't even apologized for the serious physical and mental harm. For the serious physical and mental harm you contributed to from Capitol Police and custodial workers to your own fellow members of Congress. In the meantime, you can get off my timeline and stop clout chasing things. So no, but the important part of this tweet, while she read him for filth, is that she literally said something that's very big. You haven't even apologized for the physical and mental harm. Republicans don't apologize. They will literally hurt people.
Yes.
Move on, tell you to move on, and that's it. And she's holding him accountable in the space that she runs, which is Twitter. Like, she's holding him accountable. He thought he was going to get on here and try that bipartisan BS talk that's going around. It's not going to work with people who literally have blood on their hands. Exactly. She refuses to work with them. And that's very important, because these Democrats will walk around and be hand in hand and just pushing and moving along just because y'all work together. No, it doesn't have to be like that. We may be in the same space, but I ain't working with none. I'm not working with y'all. I refuse to hurt the people by pushing that fake narrative of bipartisanship with Satans.
It's the same game. They're expecting us to play the same game in the year of our Lord 20 and 21 that they were able to get away with in 1992, right? They're gaslighting us to the highest order, and they have the full expectations that Democrats are going to capitulate, because historically they have. I just don't think it's the same right now, because when America saw those white supremacists run up those steps, I think that changed a whole lot more. And so and not to mention, not AOC, the language of our leaders is diversifying. Right. And it's diversifying in a spectacular fashion. And it is also being democratized in that they can take down one leader, but they can't take down everyone. And so with it being diversified and democratized, they can't do nothing with us now. It's our time. It's time to make this future that we know we need to make. And we're going to need leaders who can speak truth to power at that level fearlessly, like AOC did in that tweet.
Yeah.
But I mean, ahead, you know, this is not. I don't think Democrats. We need to say this. I don't think Democrats find this point as a radical point. Like, every Democrat is unified behind the fact that we need to investigate what happened at the Capitol, and also there needs to be repercussions. Even some folk expelled from Congress, and I think this is true. And you hear it from people like Ro Khanna. You heard it from like Nancy Pelosi. When you say the enemy is within, you're actually saying the same thing that AOC said. So I don't think Democrats think this is a radical point. I think everybody is unified in that something needs to happen, and it has to, especially when you consider. And I think we're going to talk about this in the next segment right now. So I'll just wait. But I'm just saying, I think everybody's unified.
I have a point to make real quick, and that's this right here. There's only one radical, and that's the people who influenced the folks to go and try to take over the Capitol building. There's no other radical besides that. There's nothing else that's radical. No more saying Democrats who want a living wage and black people who want reparations and people who want health care for all, and people who want free college, and people who want, to abolish the police or defund the police. There's no such. They're not radical. Y'all have officially lost that word from now on. The only radical in America is the people who stormed the Capitol. That's
absolutely.
It. So anytime anybody, if a moderate Democrat wants to label a progressive Democrat as a radical, you need to check him immediately. There is no such thing as radical besides telling your friends and family that it's okay to try to kidnap congressmen and kill people in the nation's capital. That's number one. Number two, these Republicans, they want to do one thing. Like a person who got caught cheating, and you're trying to work out the relationship, and the other person is still like, I'm hurt from it, and the person who was cheating was like, move on. These Republicans want to do exactly that. They want to just move on. They want to move on, and they don't want to take responsibility for what they did. So that's why they pivoted immediately into. They're embarrassed when you get caught cheating. You're embarrassed, and the Republican Party is embarrassed. Ted Cruz is like, I can't believe these people took my rhetoric and actually did that. They're embarrassed.
Was it the Scopes trial?
And they know that it's on them. So if it's on you, and you're embarrassed by it, what do human beings want to do if you're embarrassed by something? You want to move from it.
You want to run
as fast as possible.
Yeah, as fast.
Marcus, you're giving them too much. You're giving them too much humanity. I don't think they're embarrassed at all. I think Republicans are on.
I do. And the reason why I think they're embarrassed is very simple. They're embarrassed because it's the first time that their rhetoric actually was followed up by actions. Right? Usually they wouldn't care whatsoever. If they could just talk and there wasn't no actions behind it. They could just use their words as these pivot points to make people say, and because Republicans operate in gotcha, I told you so, I got you. But this time the I got you didn't work because there are people was like, no, we got you. Right? See, I do think that some of them, not all of them, I do think some of them are embarrassed. And that's why they want to move on so fast.
But it's too late. They could be embarrassed all they want.
Hold on. Let me just say, here's my pushback. I think that's giving them too much. There's been actions on Republican words forever, a long time. Charlottesville is a response to Republican elected officials' actions and words. Charlottesville was absolutely directly linked to what Trump was saying, and who he was saying it to. The Republicans, if they wanted to really move on, they would have voted a different way. They would have acted differently. The Republicans they're not embarrassed because they're used to this. They're used to whiteness reacting and responding. This is the first time it came to DC in this manner, but it ain't the first time that their language has fed violent reactions.